Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Things We Know. I'm Lisa Callahan.
And I'm Kari Morin. And today we're here with a fellow coach and friend to discuss a topic that comes up for so many women and women we love and women we know and work with. And that is life after marriage or after a breakup.
Yeah, and I mean, we say this a lot, but the greatest love you're ever going to have is yourself. And sometimes to love yourself, that might mean ending the partnership, the relationship, the marriage that you're in. And we don't say that lightly. And it doesn't mean that that relationship wasn't exactly what it needed to be at the time. But just sometimes things come to completion. So, Jo, it's so nice to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yay.
It's good to be
Um,
here.
it's good to have you. So, okay, it's my honor to give a little intro here. So, Coach Jo, who we like to say Coach Jo, she says empowering the world one woman at a time. Is 54 years young, and she has left behind a life that was good, but where she would never have the opportunity to fulfill her dreams. And now she's beginning to write a new chapter where her potential is limitless. And she's living proof that it's never too late to start over. And as a coach, Jo has created a beautiful online community of women who find daily humor and inspiration from her stories and her shares. She's got a killer sense of humor. And in her move across country has remained inspired for her vision for women that she wants to work with. I don't want to say too much. I feel like I was about to give too much away. So she's here to heal herself and heal others and celebrate. And so, yay, thanks for being here. So,
Much.
yes. So let's start with your story. Just because you seem to be a model of storytelling as a healing tool, what led you to becoming a coach and then a coach for women healing from and recovering from breakups and divorce and loss, putting their lives on a new path?
Well, it's a really long story, but I don't want to, we only have a certain amount of time, so I could talk all day, but I won't. I'm just going to go through some brief things that actually from the beginning that led me up, just because I think people can relate to them. But I grew up in a family that was very poor, like free lunches at school poor. And I'm the oldest of four girls. My dad was abusive to emotionally to us kids, physically to my mom. So as I grew up, I was while I liked myself and thought I loved myself, I actually didn't ever make room for myself because I was in survival mode a lot. I grew up, joined the military, became a military wife, left the military, became a mom, and it eventually led me to us getting stationed over in Australia. And on the plane ride there, I just remember I had just been so frustrated, feeling so lost. And I remember saying to my husband at that time that I'm going thousands of miles away from everybody I know and everybody who has any expectations of me. And in these 3 years, I'm going to become more myself than I have ever been.
Mm.
And you may or may not like it, and I'm not sure I care.
Mm.
Ooh,
And unfortunately, that was very prophetic, I guess.
that's a mic drop, though,
That
man. That is
is.
brave, and I love it. I did not know that part of your story. Holy moly.
Yeah, and while I was there, I really got in touch with sort of my psychic spiritual side. I joined a full moon group where I met the most amazing women and realized what sisterhood was really all about. Just like there were about 60 women in the group and everybody was just supportive, no backstabbing, no talking behind each other's backs, confronting each other when there was an issue and then working it out and letting it go without the whole group taking sides. And I thought, this is what sisterhood is supposed to be. Where has this been all my life, And when it was time to leave after my 3 years there, I did not want to come back to the US.
Mm.
And I was just like, I don't want to go back and be thrown back into that world where everybody expects something different of me, where there is a lot of back scratching among women and,
Yeah.
um, but my sisters there said, hey, you're like a baby in the womb and it's time to be born and it's time to take everything you've learned here out into the world with you. So in 2019, I moved back. in like June. And by October, I decided to start this online sisterhood, hoping to get maybe 500 or 600 women around the world. By February of 2020, I had 600, and then COVID hit and everybody was stuck at home on their computers. And between February and April, I went from 600 to over 10,000 women.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And that has just been awesome. I make a rule there, no politics, no religion, because I want to focus on what unites us, not what divides us.
Yeah.
And we are all about just bringing inspiration and support to each other. And sometimes it's just in memes that are just kind of thrown back around just to whatever. And once in a while we have these conversations that get started. Somebody's like, hey, I need support on this or that, and people jump in. People that have never met each other in person, and it's a wonderful thing that you see these groups of women just supporting each other and being there no matter what, and nobody's asking those questions that would upset each other or whatever, to get people into fights. So from there, somebody started asking me like, oh, you give great advice, are you a therapist, do you run retreats, whatever? And I was like, oh no, I don't do anything like that. And then all of a sudden I just thought, why not? Why am I not doing those things? I had given up my career to follow my husband around and raise children, which I don't regret being at home with my children. I loved it, but I had been giving people advice all my life, and why was I not doing something with that? And that's where it led me to look up coaching programs, and I saw HCI was founded by women, and I thought, oh my God, that's right up my alley, and here I am.
But well, going back to the original group in Australia, I mean, you came in, dare I say, guns blazing, or flew over on a plane guns blazing, with that already like very clear change you were going to make for yourself.
Yeah.
How do you feel the having that community, having that support changed, or I mean, I wonder, it feels to me like it would have accelerated it versus you trying to do it all on your own. Sounds like you would have done it regardless, but the group, what did that do for you?
That was the big push I needed in the beginning of my healing, in the beginning, coming back to me, because I was a people pleaser. Based on my upbringing, I was geared toward making everybody else happy so that things didn't fall apart.
Yeah.
So that getting there, being surrounded by women who were just there to support, and being surrounded by women who didn't know me, saw me. That was like, oh my gosh, like it was the first time in my entire life, I think. I had lots of close friends and stuff, but it was the first time that I felt that there were people out there that were just like, they knew me without me talking. They got me, and they weren't judging, and they weren't expecting anything. And it was so liberating. And then as I got closer with this group, I kept hearing from them, they were very much into empowering each other. And I kept hearing this message that you need to step into your power. It's time. You need to step into your power. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. What is that, right?
Well, you did by the time I met you.
Yeah, it was an amazing journey. And it did lead to the downfall of my marriage and some other things, which I think we'll get into in a bit. But it was the beginning of my growth and the beginning of my starting to I'm still in the process of learning, but starting to learn what it really means to love myself. Yeah.
So let's talk about that, because I would guess it's more like it led to the completion of your marriage because you were including you. So can you explain a little bit about like how you went from there to here where you are now as coaching other women going through this?
Yeah. As most of us in our generation, we were raised to believe basically that our self-worth lied in whether we got married or not, right? And then on top of that, what was the caliber of the husband you married? And growing up poor and in an abusive home, I was like just floored when I met my husband. He was my Prince Charming. He was handsome and educated and had a great job, and he was calm, and I knew without a doubt that this man would never hit me, you know. And to me that seemed like heaven. So when I married him, I was willing to give up everything. I gave up my career. I moved around the world with him. I did, all these things to be with him, and I thought that I had hit the jackpot. I realized over time that we were not necessarily compatible. And I fully believe we have to take responsibility for our own choices in this. I know, looking back, and I think I knew then, I knew he didn't love me the way I loved him. And I traded that love for comfort, for stability, for all those things that I didn't have growing up, because I thought that's what I needed. And the truth is, it is what I needed. I needed that. It wasn't going to be forever, and I didn't know that then, but I needed that person that helped me have the safety to then grow into who I needed to be, or remove all the layers of things that people had buried me in. But by the end of the 30 years we were together, I had outgrown him. And that surprised me, because I always, when I met him, I kind of put him on a pedestal, like he was above me, and I made myself stay small so I wouldn't eclipse him. And I don't know that he ever recognized any of that in me. He was pretty focused on himself. But yeah, when the end came, I would like to say I was the one who left. I wasn't. I was the catalyst for him leaving, because I did finally recognize my worth and told him I need to have my needs met. And, I was hoping that he would turn things around, and that, once and for all, he would finally see me and love me the way I wanted to be loved. But instead he said, it's not going to happen. I've decided I'm leaving.
Wow.
And I thought that would have broken me. And a couple years earlier, it probably would have. But where I was in my training and becoming a coach, and where I was in my self-discovery process and my self-love process, I went, you know what? And I'm just not going to beg you to love me anymore. So, okay, it's 30 years. It was a good life. It wasn't a bad life. It was not a great relationship, but it was a good life. I had a wonderful time, So I raised 2 beautiful boys. I don't regret a moment of it, but I'm not going to sit here and change myself again to try to be what you want me to be so that you'll love me. It's time to love myself. And so I left, and I traveled clear across the United States from Virginia to Montana, and I am in the process of building a life here.
I was going to ask you if there were any regrets, but I don't hear any, and you just sort of said that. But is there anything you would tell your younger self, the one who thought he was Prince Charming?
Yes and no. I mean, I go back and say, hey, you need to start loving yourself now, right?
Okay.
You need to wake up and realize that you have everything you need right now.
Yeah.
However, if I had done that, I wouldn't have had the life I had.
Do you think you guys would have split if you had already had the self-love that you have or had when you did split?
I think so, because I think when we first met, he thought he loved me. And by the time he realized he didn't, I had already given up the military for him. I had already given up, all these other things for him. And he's not a horrible guy. I mean, he didn't love me, but he's not a horrible guy. And
right.
I think he chose to honor his commitment to me rather than tell me, hey, sorry, you gave up everything for me, but I don't love you.
Okay.
And so yeah, if I had known and I had said something and he had left me at that point, I wouldn't have my boys. I wouldn't have lived all over the world. I wouldn't have experienced that growth that came from moving to Australia. And all of these things had to happen in order for me to get to where I am now. That said, of course, it would have been easier to have more self-esteem and self-love from an earlier age,
But I think that is really empowering. I think the women that listen to you and listen to this pod are going to be really struck by that, that with everything you went through, you actually don't have anything to tell your younger self that would change your scenario at all. I think that's unusual. And it is empowering, and it's empowering, and it's powerful to hear you say that.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it in that way, but yeah, I mean, it is, I just think that we're put in certain situations for a reason, and we have lessons to learn. And as long as we use that time to learn those lessons, now some people don't. I've seen people get divorced and go into 2 or 3 more marriages with the same issues,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's part of the coaching process that we'll get to later, that I don't want to see women do that. I want us to recognize what those lessons are and learn from them and become the people that we're really meant to be, rather than continuing the patterns over and over again in new relationships.
And as somebody who has known you since like before and during and since then, I would say it's been awesome and fascinating to see that part of you that's been getting your attention, saying, no, love you, like you deserve to fully love yourself and feel fully loved by yourself. And I love what you just said and what Lisa was highlighting, and it's kind of what she said at the beginning. I think you and I've discussed this, and this is why you're such a good coach for women, is there is a feeling out there that a marriage ending is a failure, when really it complete, right? It served its purpose. It doesn't sound like you would change any of it, because it helped gave you the container you needed to do this growth, to come to this, and it gave you the children that you adore and who adore you. And so I love that for you, that this is the full circle that you're in, and a place to help other people rewrite that narrative or reframe it or see it differently. Because I do think, we've talked about this before, I've never known any topic other than divorce that can feel just so continually tender, which is, obviously there's horrific topics to get into that people can talk about at a certain point, and divorce of their parents or divorce of their own can get so tender with criticism, self-criticism. And I love this idea that it's over. It isn't a failure.
Yeah. I mean, we lasted 30 years. I don't know how you can call that a failure. I mean, despite the fact that we were on different wavelengths of, how we felt about each other, about how we felt about ourselves, about so many things, we lasted 30 years. And without being an abusive home, where our kids grew up knowing love and knowing peace and quiet, and it was a success. I don't regret it. There are things that I wish I had learned earlier in the process, maybe about myself, but again, we learn as we learn, right? You have to accept it as it is. You can't go back and change the past. You can't make yourself learn faster than you're ready to learn. And so I think having that relationship be what it was, I mean, it was the catalyst I needed. It was the space I needed. It was everything I needed to get to where I am now.
So what is one thing you would like to change about the narrative around divorce for women, and really anyone that's going through it? It doesn't just have to be women. It could be men too. What do you want to change about the narrative?
I would like for people to see it as just like anything else, like it's a lesson. It's over when it's over. Take from it what you need to take from it, and then write the next chapter. Don't wallow in it. Don't stay stuck in the why is this. As soon as you start questioning why did this happen and whatever, this is what drives you down into that depression sort of thing, and it'll go round and round in your head, right? And I'm not saying just because I am where I am now, I'm not saying I've never went through this process. There were times where I was depressed and stuck in the why, what if, but I had to let those things come and go, and let go of all of that. I can't control what somebody else feels for me. I thought during the marriage I could. If I do this right, he'll love me more, right? It's not the case. We cannot control someone else, and rather than wonder why they feel the way they do, we need to accept that they just do feel the way they do. And that has no real bearing on us. It doesn't change who we are. So take the lessons from it and just really get into that next chapter. And what do you want? And I think one of the things that struck me, and I was thinking about it recently, before we got married, I remember going through some things with the Catholic Church, and they were talking about, like marriage is a sacrament and blah, blah, blah. And they did talk about this thing the priest called the gift of singleness. And I thought, what the hell? Because I was born to believe, you're supposed to get married. If you're a woman and you're not married, there's something wrong with you. What do you mean the gift of singleness? But I've been thinking about it since we separated, because we've been separated 2.5 years. And I have not dated. There were times I thought about it. I got online, whatever. But I realized that every time I did that, I stepped away from myself. And I stopped doing the things I needed to do for me. And when I accept that I am single for now, and I'm not discounting that somewhere down the line I will find somebody that I really want to be with, but when I embrace this gift of singleness right now, it gives me the opportunity to grow in a way I hadn't before, where I had to consider somebody else, what they needed, compromise with things. This is actually a wonderful thing if you embrace it when the marriage is over. And I think that's what helps people rebuild themselves and what they want, and then find happier relationships if that's what they want later on down the road, rather than step into a relationship where they're repeating the same patterns.
Yeah, you're bringing stuff, or it's bringing something up for me around also, like, it isn't just about like someone loves someone doesn't love someone enough. It's, to me, also sounding a lot like one person wanting the other person to not change, and the other person needing to be loved as they grow, and wanting to, like, also love that person through growth, right? And that comes up a lot, right? I mean, Lisa and I are just fresh off a retreat full of women who are experiencing that partners grow at different rates. And I think the extent to which they succeed at staying together,
right,
is, can you allow each other the space to grow?
Right. And I think the couples that figure that out last longer, right? But I have kind of a weird theory on marriage itself. And that is, of course, we're taught, and especially within the those of us who practice Christianity or particular religions, we are taught that, when you get married, it is till death do you part. Back when that came about, people died in their 30s and 40s.
Amen. I've been saying that for a while. Yes.
So we get married early, and I know today's generation is actually waiting longer, but it's hard to wait longer, because for a woman, if you want to have children, you have to do it by a certain time. And so people get married early before they know who they are.
Yes.
And they grow, and sometimes they grow together. Sometimes they grow separately, but have enough love and respect for each other that they're okay with that. And sometimes, often, they grow at separate rates in separate directions, and it breaks the marriage up because they can't accept each other. They can't work with each other. And again, you could consider that a failure, but I don't. I think it's a learning experience. You got married to the person you did, you had the kids you had, you did what you needed to do, you learned more about yourself, you realized you're no longer compatible. Maybe you weren't ever compatible, or maybe you were, but you're not now. And you decide that's the end of that chapter, and I'm going to move on to the next chapter. So
I just want to say, for the record, I don't think that theory is weird at all. I think it's exactly right. Marriage, monogamy was created when we lived to be 40, and so some people, are lucky and stay together till death do us part. But and I've been married a long time, but I still think it's a load of bullshit. I'm not gonna lie. I think it is. And I think the more we open, and I actually did say this to a couple women at the retreat, and the more we accept the reality of what was put in place years and years and years ago, when the patriarchy was even stronger than it is now, the less guilt or shame there is around something ending. Everybody makes fun of conscious uncoupling. I think that was brilliant. Say what you will about Gwyneth. I love her, but whatever, that is I think they did a really great job with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't, it's funny because if people hear I'm a divorce coach, that makes it sound like I'm encouraging divorce. And I don't know that that's true. I want to help guide people that are going through it to get through it in a way that it's empowering to them rather than disempowering to them.
Love that.
However, I do see more and more women, because we have been ruled by the patriarchy, right? More and more women are realizing their power. They're realizing their strength in and of themselves. They're realizing the power that they have collectively when they work with other women. And they're realizing that within the marriage, oftentimes, not always, because there are some very empowered men who love an empowered woman and, want to help them rise, right? But
we hope we're all raising them, right?
Yeah.
I think we are.
We are.
There's a lot of men who don't. And if, like me, you want to reach your potential, you're most likely not going to do it within that relationship unless you found one of those men who absolutely just loves and encourages you to do what you want to do.
So
if you don't have that man and you want to make the marriage work, you are going to give up what you want to make it work.
Yeah,
that's true. So like, I'm listening, your journey was a self-love journey, right? Your journey within the marriage and within the end of the marriage and then post-marriage. Is that kind of what you're wanting to bring to your clients?
Yeah. I feel like I developed my self-love in steps, like over the years. Like I had enough self-love to get me away from the abusive home I was in, and get me into the military. And then I had enough self-love to find a husband that wasn't going to repeat the patterns that I had as a child, where, there was going to be physical abuse and yelling and screaming and all of that. And then I was still stuck in this loving him more than myself, right? I love myself, but I love him more. And there were decisions I consciously made to shut down my own intuition about things, because if I believed my own intuition, then I probably would have to have left him then. I wasn't ready to leave him then, right? So my self-love is growing, but it's not there yet. And then after we went to Australia, it grew again, and I realized that I had worth and I had some power, and my needs mattered. And it took me a little while to express that, but I went through the coaching, and then that gave me the courage to express it. And then I expressed it, and then he did leave me, which was my biggest fear. If I tell him what I need, he's going to leave, and he did.
How did you feel in that moment? Were you just like, God damn it?
Moment, but like I felt like the world crumbled beneath me, and I had to grab the counter because I thought I was going to fall down on the floor. I cried for about 24 hours. I was absolutely devastated. And funny enough, I called my sister right away. And not the first thing, but early in the conversation, it was me and him taking care of his elderly mother. I said, who's going to help him take care of his mom? And she's like, what the hell do you care? He just left you. And I was like,
remember this,
right?
Because you were going to stay with her.
I was staying with her. She was dying. She rebounded. She's still alive 2.5 years later. But I was still in that space of, I'm trying to grow into loving myself, but I'm still putting him first. But when I was certain he was leaving, and I realized, gosh, I'm not going to fall apart, and I'm not going to beg for love anymore. I finally love myself enough to say, okay, I'm okay on my own. If you walk away, I'm okay, and I will survive. And then after that came, I'm not just going to survive, I'm going to thrive. And so it's come in waves and steps, and there's been backsliding into taking care of others and dropping my own stuff, and then stepping forward. It's a seesaw. That's the seesaw that I want to help other people navigate, because I think we all kind of go through that.
I'm loving this as a follow-up to last week with Marie.
Totally.
It's just absolutely perfect. Like a table for one, a girl's guide to dating herself, because on her journey, she did leave a relationship and come into a better one. And it was twice, right? And it was all about that journey of loving herself.
Yeah.
So could you tell us a little bit about, I mean, you have, I've had the pleasure of working with you on this. Like, you have incredible ways of working with women around this. You're a fabulous storyteller. You want to help them with that. But can you tell us about Divorce RX?
Yes. Well, first of all, I came up with the name just because it's the prescription for divorce, right?
Yeah.
We fall into this, either we're trying to decide whether we're going to get divorced, or we get left and we're trying to decide what we're going to do, and we need that little magic pill to help us move on. I developed, it's sort of a 6-step program, and starting with grieving and allowing that grieving and understanding that once you get past that step of grieving, it's going to come back, and it's okay. It's going to come in waves over weeks, months, years, even. It's okay. Let it wash over you, feel it, do what you need to do. It ends with you having a plan and moving toward what you want. So those 6 steps are designed to get you from one end to the other. It starts out as it's a 12-week program. And I have been doing mostly just one-on-one working with people, but my goal for it is to grow. As I get more clients that could meet at the same time, I would like to do it in groups of 5 to 10 women, so that we could build in an actual support group. So outside of the coaching you get with me, you will have a support group built, where then you can go in and chat whenever you want with these people. And they're not necessarily going to be in your area. So it's probably going to be a Zoom or group messenger, or, that type of thing, but where you can pop in and talk with other women who are going through the same thing. And then the dream for Divorce RX is that at some point, once I get my house and get everything, I'm still getting settled from the move, but once I have everything set up the way I want it, I actually would like to do retreats of maybe 3 to 6 women max, that would come here to Montana, and probably mostly in the summertime, because it'd be great to go up and meditate around one of the lakes up in the middle of the mountains and do a lot of support work up in there. A lot of my programs, I think, will involve writing. For me, writing has been very therapeutic, and I'm actually writing a book at the moment, but it'll be journaling or writing your own story, things like that. So I also have My Story RX, so the two can kind of go together. But yeah, I think that it's a great thing to lead people through slowly through the steps, understanding them, and understanding the fact that it's going to be like a dance. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And so you might think you finished a step and you've gone on to the next step and you fall back into that last step, and that's okay. Everything that we do at different rates. Everybody's different. And so my main goal in the program is to help people understand the steps and understand that it's not linear, and that everything that you feel is okay. And to provide that support for the women going forward to discover and start to live what they love.
I mean, it sounds phenomenal, and I feel such clarity from you, and such strength. And I just, when this all starts to completely come together, the group coaching and the retreats, like it's going to be life-changing for women that are going through divorce. Would you talk to a woman, or would a woman who's already divorced? Is this just for people that are going through divorce or are already divorced?
I think if you're divorced and you're feeling stuck, this is still a program for you.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
if you've got it covered, if you know what you're doing, I mean, do you need the program? You could come in and check it out. You may find that there's always something we can learn, right?
Right.
But I feel like it's for those who are feeling a little stuck in their patterns, not really knowing who they are or what they want to do, or kind of knowing but not having the support behind them. A lot of us I had dreams all my life of what I wanted to do, and I didn't do them because I didn't have the support. People would always go, whoa, like, ooh, that's going to be tough. Oh, nobody succeeds at that. Oh, why would you want to do, if you're not surrounded by support, if you don't have somebody in your corner telling you, yeah, you can. And the fact is, I believe for all of us, yeah, you can.
Yeah.
There's nobody is incapable of living their dreams.
And
we all know what it takes.
You also call yourself a breakup coach. So it's not just a divorce. It could be a breakup. It could be getting fired, like just something that feels like a real unhappy ending for people, or something that they just really are toiling with. I feel like as a breakup coach, you're also inviting women who maybe weren't married but ended a partnership and they need to move on from.
Any type of partnership, friendship. You could have been, you have a friend that you realize you've been friends for 12 years, but that friend is really toxic to you and you don't know how to get out of it. Or you have a job that's just weighing you down. I had to put myself kind of through my own program to get to a point where I just recently quit my job because it was getting in the way of what I really loved. just as much as my marriage was, you know. I just had to take the time to realize that that was part of that process. A lot of people I know are dealing with like relatives that are, you know, toxic, and they're like, but I'm related to them, and how can I, you know, break this off? It's all the same process. So yeah, any sort of breakup, but primarily I with people going through divorce, but yeah, any type of breakup is what this process would work for.
So what do you think the Jo of 5 years from now wants to tell you? I asked you what you would tell the Jo 30 years ago, but I think you said 2019. So if we were to look at 2029, what does she want to tell you?
Um, I I think keep going. Like
Yeah.
I am in the midst of pushing away all these bad, I don't want to say habits, but patterns in my life that I used for survival when I was young that don't serve me now to thrive, and recognizing those patterns and moving those away so that I can move through the process and get where I want and just keep going. Avoid the fear, avoid the need to take care of everybody else's feelings or appease someone else, or you know, any of that. Just focus on what I want and just keep going.
Love it.
Lisa, she's a projector.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. So your future self is inviting you into that as a projector.
Very much, very much.
I love
That was
it.
a very projector invitation, I thought.
That's awesome. So Kari says you have a couple of songs that you want to reference, which I love. Why don't you and one of them you want to go a little deeper on, and one's more of a theme. So go ahead and share them.
So when I first found out I was going to be getting divorced, I heard a song. Well, I started a playlist. So women's empowerment. It's all female singers and all empowering songs. But I heard the song "Brave" by Sarah Bareilles, and I love that because it's all about using your voice. And that I'm trying to think. One of the verses basically says that. You know, that you've been holding your tongue all along and that hasn't worked for you, right? And she says, I want to see you be brave, meaning I want to see you speak up, use your voice, say what you want. And that was a song I listened to over and over again at the beginning of my divorce journey, because I really realized how much time I spent holding my tongue and just going along with what everybody else wanted, needed. And it wasn't just my husband, it was everybody in my life. Whatever anybody else wanted, I would try to, you know, just be whatever they needed. And it was time to stop that. So that was really a theme song for me moving forward.
Great song.
The other one was a song I used to listen to a lot more country music when I was younger, but my husband didn't like it, so I kind of stopped listening to it over the years. But I was a huge Reba McEntire fan. And there was a song she sang, How Was I to Know? And I would hear that song, and even back then I identified with it. But I put it on the other day because I hadn't listened to her for a long time, and this song came on, and I broke down and just cried and cried and cried because I realized like that was exactly how I had felt and I had overcome. And she said, how was I to know that I'd be wait a second. How was I to know that I'd be okay, that I'd lose it all when you walked away? How was I to know I could be this strong? I had what it takes all along.
Yes, you did.
Yes, you did.
And I love that your journey is the baby steps, right? I mean, it's more than just like, oh, you woke up and were like, fuck this, right? Like, I love that, what I really love about your story, and what I think is the most empowering and what women are going to really walk away from in this, and absolutely the reason to work with you, is that you see where each time you got a little bit stronger. You know, you didn't get strong at the end. You built upon your strength time after time after time. And even when you, like you said, even when the waves came and took you a little bit back, you knew that wasn't the end, and you came back stronger. To me, that is the takeaway of your story, and what women are just going to be like, I want what she's having.
Yeah. I love the way you just put that, Lisa, because the way I've always seen it with Jo, and Jo knows this, is like there's this goddess wise soul in there from the day I met her.
Yeah.
From the day of hearing about her goddess circles and the things she was doing. Who knew? And like do you remember what you said? You're like, I'm gonna make more than him, and like I'm gonna blow this out of the water. Like you had just this beautiful vision. And I feel like that version of you has been walking along, holding the hand with that younger version of you that just needed to like speak up sometimes and say, are you sure? Are you sure? And yep, here we go. And like,
Yeah.
And here you are. She got you this far. So
I think of
beautiful.
it like that line in Shrek when he's like, no, I'm like an onion. And they're talking about between the layers of onions.
Nobody likes onions. What about a parfait?
And I'm like, and Shrek's like, no, it's an onion. Onions have layers. That's kind of the way it's been for me, is like I'm that little core inside the onion, and little by little I've just been peeling off the layers, and I'm getting down to that core and realizing, wow, like I just had so much. I've always had it. It's just been buried beneath what everybody else has thrown on me. And it's not, I can't blame everybody else. Nobody can do anything to us that we don't accept. I accepted all the stuff that people put on me. And now it's my job to peel the layers off one by one till I get to where I need to be. And it's a hard process. I don't know that, I mean, I was doing it before coaching, but it was like, it exploded, I think, after I started with HCI learning how to be a coach, and I had my own coaches, and Kari was one of my first coaches, which was fantastic. She was a big help in getting me where I needed to go, or pointing me in that direction. Every time I get off track, she'd be like, no.
She's good like that.
But yeah, I think that's the big thing, is we have to recognize too that even if you're in the worst marriages where somebody is really terribly abusive to you or whatever, we chose that person and we can choose to get out. And that's a really hard space. I have a lot of friends who are in very abusive relationships. I have a lot of family who are in very abusive relationships. And in my less abusive relationship, I still felt stuck, like I couldn't get out. I know when you're in an abusive thing, it feels overwhelming, but that's when you need a coach. You need somebody to help you peel those layers back and to realize that you don't have to stay stuck.
No question.
I think that's important.
I love
I
that.
love it. Well, thank you so much, Jo, for being here today. It's so lovely to see you. Thank you so much for the way you talked about this very tender topic. But again, one that can be really empowering. It can be of great love and healing. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners who may be contemplating divorce, in the middle of divorce, at the tail end of divorce?
Might go back to your previous podcast that you had. Love yourself. Put yourself first. Know what you want. Go get what you want. Just keep going.
And can you tell our listeners how to find you? And of course, we'll have your email and a link to your online accounts, but is there the easy, if someone's listening right now going, I need to talk to Jo?
So right now, because again, I'm still in the process of setting things up since I moved and all this stuff. I don't have a website set up or anything like that. Best thing is, if you actually want to talk one-on-one, email me and I will send you my phone number and you can call me, or you can email me your phone number and I will call you. And we'll just do a quick chat and figure out where we want to go. If you're not sure you want somebody to really be a coach, but you need some inspiration, I am on Instagram as Miss Coach Jo, and some stuff gets put in there every day, but the majority of my stuff is through a private Facebook group called Wild at Heart Sisterhood. And that's where we have over 10,000 members. Actually, I think we have almost 12,000 around the world. And it's daily inspiration, gratitude, motivation, call for support, those kinds of things that you can jump into conversations with me or with other women. So it's a really fun, motivating place to be until you know what you're ready to do.
Excellent.
Love it.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We will be back. As we always are each week.
And if you found this inspiring, or you know someone who you're like, oh my God, they've got to listen to this episode, they've got to reach out to Jo. Just share this with any of them. And as always, if you're on our social media, we would love to hear some feedback on this. But until next week, thank you very much. Thanks again, Jo. And we'll be back. Yeah, we'll be back next week.
Cheers. To you
Cheers.
guys.
Bye. Cheers.